Okay, in this video, I want to take a first stab at explaining the difference between a pick list type of an approach to creating an XBRL taxonomy and a model-based approach to creating an XBRL taxonomy. So the US GAAP taxonomy has been self-described by people at the FASB as basically being a pick list. So I don't know if they intend that to be a good thing or a bad thing, but it's not a good thing if you want to use the taxonomy using automated processes. So what you're seeing on the screen here is one network of the US GAAP taxonomy. Okay, this is the balance sheet, statement of financial position. Okay, and here's what makes this not a model. So this is one of the better represented networks in the taxonomy. It's pretty much only the balance sheet, a type of balance sheet, but I'll show you some things that make it less than optimal. The first thing is this infamous statement table. The problem with this hypercube is that it's also used on the income statement, the cash flow statement, and other statements. In fact, Microsoft, which I'll show you, uses this on, I don't know, like 28 different networks. All they do is they use this as a way of putting a table. Rather than creating an extension concept, they put this statement table in a lot of the fragments of information that they represent. And that makes it so you can't use this to identify any fragment because multiple fragments have the same table. So you go down, this looks pretty good, but a lot of these things, for example, you're not really going to have all of these things represented in any balance sheet. So there's a lot of clutter. There's more information than you need. This would be better put in some other area of the taxonomy where they have wider and narrower concepts. The same thing here. You're not going to have all of this stuff on the balance sheet. So this clutter makes it hard to read the balance sheet. So that's one thing that is less than optimal about this representation. A second thing that is less than optimal is that, here you have stockholders' equity and the information that relates to stockholders' equity. Then you start getting into things that are actually, this is parenthetical information. This should actually be in a different network. If it was, it would make the balance sheet more clear. It would make this more clear also because this is a different thing. This is parenthetical disclosure of a bunch of information about the stock on the balance sheet. So there's only one line item here. I don't know which one it is. That would actually go on the balance sheet. Then you also have this partnership information. So it's never the case that a company is both a partnership and a stock corporation. It's going to be one or the other. But they've crammed this into one network, which makes it hard to understand both this set of information and the other set of information because it's harder to read. You're also breaking the pattern. Everything else in this statement was a roll-up. This is not part of the roll-up, though, because it's not. You're never going to have this combined with the other stuff that you see in the balance sheet. And then here again, you have information that is parenthetical information as opposed to part of the balance sheet. but then you have the balance sheet total. So anyway, you've got about 4 different things going on here, and if they broke this into 4 different pieces, the taxonomy would be easier to read. So that's one thing that makes something model-based. So I created another prototype taxonomy for not-for-profit entities, and I tried to create it perfectly. So the first thing you notice is that every fragment of information in this report has a unique table that describes the information that is being represented. The second thing, this is a pure balance sheet, statement of financial position. You have 2 roll-ups, an assets roll-up, and in this case, a liabilities and net assets roll-up. So they use the term net assets instead of equity. Okay. This is a different balance sheet. This is a liquidity-based balance sheet where you don't have current and non-current liabilities and assets. This is it's an income statement, but they call it a statement of activities in the not-for-profit world. This, again, has a unique table. It's small, and the things that break this, these are the things that you would typically see on the face of the statement. The things that would break this down are in a separate network where you have basically the wider, narrower relations for, say, contract revenue or for different types of expenses. So these are small, easy to read pieces. Now, this is just a prototype, so it doesn't have all the things you would need, but you notice the patterns here. Number 1, it's easy to read. Number 2, they all have start with a table. This is a model-based approach to creating a taxonomy. That's what I intend to do with the not-for-profit taxonomy. It's all model-based. So this is worth having a look at if you're trying to understand taxonomies and what makes them good and what makes them bad. This is a really good taxonomy to look at. So now, but what does this mean? Okay, so let's see. Nope, that's not the one I want. This was the one I want. Okay, this is Microsoft. I've shown you this before in another video. This is the Microsoft 10K. It's in 2017. And it has 128 components. If I click on this and I show the block view, notice 2 things. Number 1, it has 194 blocks of information. Notice that you've got some of these blocks that have these funky names. Block N2C1B4. So what this actually is, block network. It's in network 2, component 1, and it's the 4th block in that network. So here, component network 2, there's only one table, so that's the component. And there's the 4th block. There's the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. Actually, there's the 4th block. So I'm not sure why it's putting it here. I think it's in alphabetical order. I don't know what it's doing, but it's... Anyway, so you go back here. This is a funky thing that, I'm taking a pick list based representation approach, and I'm converting it into a model-based approach by creating rules. So that's what this is. These are all those disclosure mechanics rules, and I've created 121 rules that grab each of the 194 components. So the way you reconcile 194 to the 121 is that some of these only have one. So this one only has one. So this is the level 1 text blocks, so basically the notes. and there's not a detail for the notes. The level 2 text blocks, these are all the policies. The level 3, level 4 text blocks. Let me see. This is where you have both a level 3 and a level 4 text block. And you'd expect this for all the disclosures. So you count, you can, I don't know how many there are here, maybe 50 of these. So there's 2 fragments of information. There's the text block representation, and then there's the level 4 representation for this. So you double this. So that's how you get to 194 from the 124. So the problem with the Microsoft report is that they create extension concepts, so I can't find certain things because the rules, you're not going to write rules that identify every extension concept that every company creates. It kind of defeats the purpose of extracting information out of a report easily. So to overcome these issues with Microsoft, so I'm showing you the Microsoft one because it's a real report, and I'm showing you that it works the same way as my little prototype. But here's the prototype. This is a not-for-profit report. It has only 29 components, 29 networks, 29 components, so one table per network. But it has 77 blocks. So it's basically half the size, roughly, of Microsoft report. The first thing you notice is that each of these things actually has a human-readable name. The reason for that is that none of these were derived. They were explicitly defined. So I didn't have to derive them and then come up with some funky name because it didn't have a name in the report. Plus, all of these are represented correctly so that you can give them names. So if you go to this disclosure mechanics validation, so these are all the pieces, and you see I have 58 sets of rules, but again, you have for the level 3, 4, you have 2 disclosures for one set of rules. That's how you reconcile the 128 to the 58. So basically, there's a 1-to-1 correlation between what you see here and what you see here in this list. So I know what's not good is that I can't see. I have to manually go from here to here to verify that everything that should be detected and verified is being detected and verified. So that's a flaw in this software application, which I'm going to let the developer know about. But anyway, so you have these rules that are used to describe what you intend, how you intend to have a disclosure created. These same rules can be used by someone creating a report to make sure that they're following those rules. They can also be used in a automated process to verify that they've been following the rules. That's what this is. And they can also be used by a regulator or an investor or a data aggregator to extract information from the report reliably because the rules are described, and it's the same rules. The same rules are used for all 4 things. And that makes sense because that's the communication process that is used, the rules. So This is basically a model-based taxonomy. So here, we don't need to see both of these. It's very consistent. So every one of these has a table. Every one of these, that's right. The presentation relations are very consistently represented. You can auto-generate the calculation relations and the definition relations from the presentation relations. And there's lots of other benefits to having a consistent model for representing a report. So you don't need to have the base taxonomy having been represented using the model-based approach. You can just change the taxonomy because you're not changing the terms. You're just changing the structures, the associations, the rules that are used to relate to the pick list-based taxonomy, but you're not changing the taxonomy itself. So I'm going to stop there. I think I'd give myself a D+ for explaining this. I'm going to do this again as I understand it better and as I can communicate it better. But I'm going to leave it at that for now. But this is a little bit, it's kind of like we're dabbling in the difference between a pick list and a model-based approach to creating a taxonomy.